Hello possers. Today we will look at the mystery of where eels come from. In the spring of 1876, a young man named Sigmund Freud arrived in the seaside city of Trieste and set about a curious task. Every morning, as the fishermen brought in their catch, he went to meet them at the port, where he bought eels by the dozens. He carried them home, to a dissection table in a corner of his room, and, from 8 until noon, when he broke for lunch, and then again from 1 until 6. When he quit for the day and went to ogle the women of Trieste on the street, he diligently slashed away, in search of gonads. "My hands are stained by the white and red blood of the sea creatures," he wrote to a friend. "All I see when I close my eyes is the shimmering dead tissue, which haunts my dreams. And all I can think about are the big questions, the ones that go hand in hand with testicles and ovaries, the universal, pivotal questions. Where do eels come from? The European eel and the American eel, both considered endangered by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, make this extraordinary migration. The sargasso is the only place on Earth where they breed. The slithery creatures, some as long as 1.5 meters, arrive from Europe, North America, including parts of the Caribbean, and North Africa, including the Mediterranean Sea." Hanel, a fish biologist and director of the Thunen Institute of Fisheries Ecology in Bremerhaven, Germany, makes his own month-long migration here alongside a rotating cast of researchers, some of whom hope to solve mysteries that have long flummoxed marine biologists, anatomists, philosophers, and conservationists. What happens when these eels spawn in the wild? And what can be done to help the species recover from the impacts of habitat loss, pollution, overfishing? The idea that eels have sex at all is a fairly modern notion. Ancient Egyptians associated eels with the sun god Atum and believed they sprang to life when the sun warmed the Nile. In the 4th century BCE, Aristotle proclaimed that eels spontaneously generated within the entrails of the earth, and that they didn't have genitals. The no-genital theory held for generations. Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder asserted that eels rubbed against rocks and their dead skin, scrapings come to life. Others credited eel provenance to everything from horses' tails to dewdrops on riverbanks. In medieval Europe, this presumed asexuality had real economic consequences and helped make the European eel a culturally important species, according to John Wyatt Greenlee, a medieval cartographic historian who wrote part of his dissertation on the subject. Frequent Christian holidays at the time required followers to adhere to church-sanctioned diets for much of the year. These prohibited adherents from eating unclean animals or meat that came from carnal acts, which could incite, as Thomas Aquinas put it, an incentive to lust. Fish were the exception. Greenlee says, and eels, given their abundance and the fact that they just sort of appear and that nobody can find their reproductive organs at all, appealed to anyone trying to avoid a sexy meal. It's no surprise that it took so long to find eel sex organs. There are more than 800 species, about 15 of which are freshwater varieties. And their bodies change so dramatically with age that scientists long thought the larvae were a different species than adult eels. Eels transform from eggs to transparent willow leaf-like larvae, to wormy see-through babies called glass eels, and onward until full size. Like most eel species, American and European eels don't fully develop gonads until their last life stage, usually between 7 and 25 years in. Around that time, they leave inland fresh and brackish waters, where people can easily observe them, and migrate up to about 6,000 kilometers, roughly the distance from Canada's easternmost tip to its westernmost, to the Sargasso. And that's it for this video.